the grandson of a pioneering Jewish politician from Brookline, Massachusetts.
My dad wrote the book on Zionism.
He has a book called Zionism, an Introduction.
They're saying that anti-Zionists want them to be all expelled or killed, and then anti-Zionists are like, what? Where did you get that? We never said that. You know, I think he's a loser or whatever. Your taxes are fucking going to Gaza. We shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. Judaism, anti-Semitism minus Israel equals what? And I don't know what that would look like. You mentioned the word Palestine, and they'll be like, what's that?
I know. How do you not see? Hello, welcome to the Mary Houlihan Show. Today we're joined by esteemed guest, comedian and writer, Ethan Stanislawski.
Can I applaud myself? Is that allowed?
Yes,
okay.
Of course. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Good to see you. Yeah.
Ethan, you have a one-man play called Jew Interrupted. What is it?
It is a story of growing up in New York. It is a story of growing up the son of a Jewish history professor at Columbia University and the grandson of a pioneering Jewish politician from Brookline, Massachusetts. The assumptions I was raised with in that world about Judaism and Israel and beyond, and my own struggles reconciling both my personal and political life in that world, coming to terms with my Jewish identity and how the way I was deeply raised in a certain way of thinking could be changed as I got to an adult, both before and after October 7th.
Well, I watched the show and it was fab. It was really funny and sweet and moving as well.
Thank you.
A standout joke that I really liked was my dad wrote the book on Zionism. Literally. And then
it shows he has a book called Zionism, an Introduction. So it's a fun time. And I have a copy of it that says, to Ethan with all my love. And I'm like, okay, this is a book on something. My dad, and just to be clear, like I always like prefacing off the top, my dad's not like a crazy Zionist or anything like that. He's a professor. He studies it. That's his field of study. I could get into his stuff, but it's more just like growing up with that legacy. It's just like, oh, I was born into this. Like, what do I do with that? So, yeah.
Right. And I think it's interesting because I think you depict your dad in the show as being neutral, or maybe privately he was critical of some things with Israel. And it sounds kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of seems like it was easier for people like your dad to be critical decades ago than it is now. Well, maybe not now, but
yeah, it's interesting. I think in the world at large, it's easier to be critical now, like in the grand scheme of things, both on the left and the right for different reasons.
Sure.
Better the left, I'll just say better than reasons than the other side. But for like my dad's world, I feel like honestly it feels like the same. Like growing up in that culture, and like my dad has, being an academic, studying it with a critical eye, has, a unique perspective. He has his own opinions. I have my own opinions. But I think what's happening now, and it's also a generation gap, and I addressed that in the show. But like of my parents' generation, my grandparents' generation, the forces that were behind that there, I feel like it's intensified, but it's not like differentiated, if that makes sense. It's like the same things that were there when I was growing up in the Upper West Side in the 90s are there now. They're just got in some, you can either go two directions. You can go, there's not really a middle ground to go in anymore. It's just completely off the deep end that anything Israel does is right, no questions asked, or this shouldn't be a thing at all. Like there's so like we talked about this when we were in LA, but just like what Zionism means now has gone completely off the rails, and it can mean so many different things to so many different people. I know people are like, let's just not even use that label anymore.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way, at least in certain contexts. I don't think it's useful, because if the audience all has different ideas of what the word means, then how is it useful to use it? And especially like, I think all of like the anti-Zionists that we know, they're advocating for like one state, equal rights for everybody, and no hierarchy of religions. But to people who like self-proclaimed Zionists, they say that anti-Zionism is the destruction of Israel.
Right, and it's interesting because I like a point I've been struggling with recently is I think this sounds contradictory, but I think the term anti-Zionism is more useful than the term Zionism, and not just because like that's closer to what my politics are, but in terms of like when you say someone's an anti-Zionist, it's a lot clearer to what their agenda is than a Zionist. Like there's liberal Zionists, there's political Zionists, there's philosophical Zionists, there's Kahanists, there's like it's all over the board. And it's also one of those things where like what the term means versus what policies people actually want are wildly different. Because if people like I've read surveys on this and like listened to studies on this. It's like you can have people who are like it's an apartheid state, it's a genocide. Netanyahu belongs in The Hague. This system should be overturned. Then you ask them, "Are you anti-Zionist?" Like, no, I'm a Zionist.
Right.
So it's like, well, everything you're saying is part of this agenda. Yeah. But you're not. You're still calling yourself a Zionist, and so it's like, where does I don't know.
Well, I think like with that, I think certain people who don't like the word anti-Zionist, they believe that Zionism, and this is like why we're like none of us are agreeing on the definition. They're saying the definition is Jewish people of European descent living in Israel at all.
Yeah.
And they're saying that anti-Zionists want them to be all expelled or killed, and then anti-Zionists are like, what? Where did you get that? We never said that.
It's also like when I posted about this, and I just started posting about it on Facebook, which I'm regretting because I just am sharing my Instagram post to Facebook, which is where people I don't want them to see them are. But I'm like at this point, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But I had someone add me as a Facebook friend and then PM me that like you're wrong. Anti-Zionists do want to expel Israelis. I know this one guy from law school. He's a nothing, and I'm like, one guy,
right?
And it's like you heard. It's one of those things where it's like I made the point in a follow video that like one person in your law school is not reflective of the leadership and like the organized agenda of that movement. If you look at what the organized leadership of the Zionist movement is saying and who is saying it, it's like 500 members of Congress who are saying like displaced Palestinians, that kind of thing. So it's just like the scale that's part of what it is. It's just the scale is so off. And one of the things I struggled with before the show and really after October 7th and for a few months, like figuring out where I stood on this, because I said in the show, I forget if I said in the performance you saw that like before October 7th, I consider myself a two-state solution person. Like I was like sort of parroting opinions that were in my family, but not the crazy ones because there is that in my family. But I was just sort of parroting like the sort of left of liberal Zionists, but no means anti-Zionist kind of point of view.
Okay.
And I would just say like, okay, I don't want to see people displaced, which I still don't want to see. But I also like the scale of it is really the challenge for me in terms of like how hard it is. Like you give an inch of bad evidence to someone that will be in every newspaper in America. Meanwhile, you can have Randy Fine, the congressman in Florida, saying all Muslims are evil, they're killers, they should all be expelled, and he gets reelected without issue. So it's like that's the thing. I'm not even like I even have like weirdly struggled with calling myself pro-Palestinian, even though I am on the side that what Israel's doing is a genocide and horrific and should not be a state functioning as a Jewish state. But it's like I don't even like. It's not like I have an affinity for Palestine or that I have like a special love of the Palestinian people. It's just they're human beings, and I don't want human beings to deal with this.
Yeah.
And I've seen like people in like I grew up with like Germans would be like go to kibbutzes, they'd speak Hebrew, and it was all because of this like guilt complex, and that was like normal for me to like that was not uncommon to see like there's a guy I went to college with who went by Yitzhak. He was German. That was not his name at the time. But he it's just they're adopting this because it's so like enraging what your people have done, and I totally get that. I'm completely sympathetic to that, but I don't know if it's technically like a globalist point of view. I just treat people like people. That's really what it is, and if you're not treating them like that, that needs to be called out.
I think maybe at a certain time, a two-state solution made sense, but I feel like they've basically been trying. You could say that Gaza and the West Bank are one state, but Israel can't help
Palestine
themselves.
have a right to defend itself? No one ever asked that.
Yes, exactly. If they're a state, then they need a military.
Yeah.
So
there you go. Imagine
and they don't want
that.
them to have a military.
Yeah.
So
that's a thing.
So that's a thing. Your show is interesting to me because you were talking about your dad, or maybe like people like your dad or your grandpa, like kind of this desire that people of our generation have for like boomers, for elders to speak up about this because certain audiences will listen to them and won't listen to us. They think we're crazy and we're on our phone all day.
Right. And it's
like I thought it was kind of interesting. Like Rahm Emanuel went to Tel Aviv and did that speech, and I think he's a loser or whatever, but I am glad that people like that are going and saying these things and making it safer for like other liberal Jewish boomers to say, you know what, I actually don't approve of this either.
Yeah. And with politicians, it's such a weird balance right now, especially Democratic politicians, because on the one hand, they still have the same influences, both in terms of what their heart is at, what they were raised with, and where AIPAC is influencing things. It's not anti-Semitic to say AIPAC is one of the biggest lobbying organizations, if not the biggest in the country. I don't know the exact numbers now. That's just a factual statement.
Yes. And even if they're not the biggest, why would we need to squabble over that? If they have huge influence, they do, and they shouldn't.
Absolutely. So there's that, all those factors. On the other hand, you look at polling numbers, and there's no way you can win in certain parts of the country as a Democrat in a primary and be as Zionist as you are. If anyone, either Schumer's going to retire in 2028 or he's going to get smoked, absolutely smoked by whoever primaries him.
Yeah.
And it's not even going to be close. And so you see like all these mostly Zionists and still to this day, like pro-Israel politicians saying things like Gavin Newsom's calling Israel an apartheid state for like a week. Even he said for like a week and he backtracked. That week would never happen.
Yeah.
Like 4 years ago. It would never, ever happen.
Right.
Like Josh Shapiro was saying,
would call him an anti-Semite for 6 weeks in the national news.
Yeah. Like Josh Shapiro, who is like the governor of Pennsylvania, said like, we need to hold the Israeli government accountable for killing Palestinian Americans. And it's like, Josh frickin' Shapiro?
Yeah.
Like what? He is saying things, anything critical of Israel, like giving them an inch. That's not something I ever thought would ever happen. So it's like, it's not good. It's still not there, but it is like, it's a response to seeing what's happening in primaries in New York and other places and being like, I gotta do something. But it's all half measures all day for that style of politician. But
something that I really would like to see is like an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times saying, I donate to AIPAC. This is why I'm not donating anymore.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like that would reach a certain audience that would go, oh, I guess this is wrong.
Yeah.
Because so many of like those people, those like boomers, they really think that like everyone's got this crazy ideas from their phones and from their college. And like,
it's also like there's other organizations that are Zionists. There's like JPAC, which is like the liberal Zionist organization. J Street, the liberal Zionist organization. I remember I talk about my grandfather's death in the show and how much it affected me. Literally at the day before he died, I remember a rabbi saying to my dad, "Hey, do you think we should support J Street or should we be unified and stay with AIPAC?" And like, I'm here for my grandfather now. I'm not here to engage in this debate right now. Like, but so it's that's a whole debate. It's like the unity of Jews have to be unified, which is something like I've just never understood that. I've never understood. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine like a few years ago, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, like, if there's someone who is actively hurting the world and just causing destruction, causing pain to other people, and embracing that pain, and they're Jewish, why should that affect my opinion on them? Yeah, and he was Jewish too. And I haven't been able to answer that question ever since. I think I've never been able to answer that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the fear is that like if you criticize them, what if like a real anti-Semite hears your criticism and then they use it? I feel like some people are afraid of that, and it's like we really need to not be afraid of that.
Yeah, and like what I'm really struggling with right now, and I think a lot of lefty Jews and anti-Zionist Jews are struggling with, is what to do about the anti-Zionist right that's emerged in recent years. Because that is, there's so much debate going on in lefty Jewish circles about that. Because, is Tucker Carlson an ally? Like that whole debate. No, but it's also the kind of thing, if he has a platform, there's merit to being like, if he has a platform that is enormous and smokes the comparison of any anti-Zionist platform, and he's saying what Israel's doing is wrong, there is value to that. Yes. But look at the overall picture. Like, this is a man who has killed hundreds of thousands of people across the world with his USA conspiracy theories. So I don't want to tell someone in Gaza that, like, you can't support this guy because of his stuff. But I also don't want to tell someone who's starving in Africa to be like, we have to support this guy because he's helping this part of the world thousands of miles away. So it's a real struggle, but I also my general rule of thumb is the right is not your friend. Period.
Sure.
Period.
I'm kind of intrigued by like libertarians because I feel like with anti-war stuff and even like with ICE detention center stuff, so much of this stuff is like our taxes are paying for like crazy things, and it's very easy to convince like a liberal person this is morally wrong, we shouldn't support it. But like, I love it when like Dave Smith tells his audience, your taxes are fucking going to Gaza, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, I feel really glad that like his audience is hearing that, because they probably wouldn't listen to a liberal person.
But it's also like, it's a real challenge because this is objectively getting that message across to people who wouldn't otherwise hear it. But it's also that side of it. There is a lot more rampant anti-Semitism that is behind that, and it's just white supremacy in general. Like they did a study recently that I think like almost 50% of young Republicans, like college age Republicans, question the Holocaust or don't believe the Holocaust happened. And so I think about like, people are like, oh, the youngins are getting radicalized to the left. I'm like, look how it's going in the other direction. Like, look how nasty it's getting in the other direction. Look, so that's sort of, I worry about that as much. That's where I work. That's like my worries about anti-Semitism are all coming from right-wing sources. Like, there's like you'll hear shitty comments online from leftists, but I'm like, you think Muslims aren't hearing shitty comments from everyone? Like, so it's just one of those things where I compare. Like, I started a new joke about like talking to a Palestinian friend. It's like, someone called me a dirty Jew on the internet. Do you know what it's like to be called a slur on the internet and how horrible that is? And it's like, so I just compare. I just try to remember that like what I consider scary and offensive is like, you put it in a larger perspective, in a larger context. And I always, when everyone's like anti-Semitism on the rise, it is. But and part of me is like, okay, some of it's anti-Israel stuff, and that's just purely saying things critical of Israel. Some of it is, even that side of it is tinged with a little anti-Semitism, even if it's mostly just critical of Israel. But it's like, until that state is not a Jewish state, it's so hard to distinguish between that. It's like, and that's the problem with that being a Jewish state. Like, it's like a science experiment. If you like Judaism, anti-Semitism minus Israel equals what? And I don't know what that would look like in any point in the future.
It does kind of make me think like you could just call the USA a Christian state, and then be like, oh my God, the USA is bombing people. How could you say that about this Christian state?
Yeah.
Look what the Muslims doing, but you're criticizing the Christians? Like,
or something that's like, I've heard so many arguments that like Muslims are uniquely violent. I'm like, because there's no history of terrorism in Ireland or Latin America or Southeast Asia or anything like that.
And also just like our military is as violent, usually more violent than what we call terrorist groups. So like, I'm just so glad that 9/11 didn't happen when there was social media. Like, I think about that all the time, just like all the nonsense that would just be out there and all the pain that would just be caused by that. I mean, on the one hand, it is like this information about what's happening in Gaza and this turn in American polling wouldn't happen without social media. And so I it's one of those things where everyone hates social media like that. Even the people who are on it all the time, except for like 3 insane people, like, are like, social media, it's even if I'm on it, I'm not really a fan of it, but it is creating awareness of things that wouldn't be awareness
there wouldn't be any awareness about otherwise. So that is a value of it. It's just it can just it's like one of those things. You have 100 people agreeing with something, one person can poison the whole conversation, and that just and that can happen. I think that's part of why it took me so long after October 7th to come around. I talked about like quitting social media for a little bit after that, just because I was just feeling like all these conversations are just poison, and it took a lot of guts to like be like, I need to listen to something that I've never heard before, and that's what sort of started all that, and what ultimately led to the show. But yeah,
what was something or someone that you listened to that sort of switched the way you were thinking?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few things that like sort of core messages, like there was a documentary called Israelism that came out before October 7th, and I watched that with my wife, and she was like, "Oh my God, this is awful," and I was just like, "This is awful. This is bad."
Isn't that how we all grew up?
That's like, but this is normal. I was just like so thankful this was being depicted, like that this sort of like, and like, if the real thing I'm trying to change, and like I'm not like going to go on missions and go like on policies. I'm not qualified to do that. I mean, but I am like, what I do know is how Jews are educated on the subject from birth, essentially from preschool on. And that is something that documentary really covers. And it was just like, oh yeah, this was all propaganda. I wouldn't have called it propaganda before. I would just called it like a Jewish Zionist education, which is technically what it is, but it's propaganda. Like, there was a great moment I had, my friends still like laughing at me about this, where on Inauguration Day when Elon did the Nazi salute, I just was ranting to some friends. I was just like, he's a freaking Nazi. I could probably swear, right? Like,
sure,
yeah, I'm just a fucking Nazi, but my aunt's going to be okay with it because he's pro-Israel. He's in a fucking cult. And I just had this whole rant, and it was just like, whoa. It was just like going on about that. It was the first time I called Zionism a cult in my life. And it was like, we talk about the difference between religion and cult. Like, religions don't, like, some do, certain sects of it, but it goes to cult when you are going to risk seeing your family if you have any difference of opinion.
Right.
Like that, when you're being strong-armed, that's when you get into cult territory. Judaism embraces dissent, embraces doubt, and like even more than some other religions I've known. Like, not that I think it's better, but it's just like, it embraces struggling with the truth. That's like a core principle of Judaism. What's just, what's right. That's not part of Zionism. Zionism, like at its, like this current iteration of Zionism,
absolute.
It's absolute. Israel is a just state, the most moral arm. Whatever it is. We've heard all the talking points a million times, but it's like, that's not Judaism. That is not Judaism. Not forget even like, can you be the Zionism versus anti-Semitism debate? Like, that level of there is no room for dissent on this one issue is not Judaism to me. And it's so, what really frustrates me about this is the turn that happens when Israel comes up in any kind of conversation in traditional mainstream Jewish spaces. Is like, because over like everything else, it's very like, not universally, but like Jews on like Reform and conservative Jews on average are like 70 to 80% Democratic voters. Like, they're overwhelmingly Democratic voters. But it's just like, but then there's like a flip, and all of a sudden with this, you're talking about right-wing talking points on this one issue, and it's just like a conversation stopper. So you say, okay, you support this issue. What about when that happens with Palestinians? Like, shut the fuck. It just turns into that kind of tone, and it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, the way that certain Zionists, again, I really try not to use the word. I'll say like a hardline Israel supporter, a conservative Israel supporter. That's usually like what I'll say.
And like, you can. That's why, like, when I think of Zionists, I think of that.
Yeah,
I know there's a middle ground, but like when I think of like that term, whatever you think of that term is now that.
Yeah.
When people who are not in that issue think of what a Zionist is, that's what they think.
Right. Yeah. And the way that those people talk about Arabs, it looks the way that like when you watch like old footage of like civil rights era, like white people saying like disgusting things about black people, and you go, oh my God, I can't believe this ever. But now we're seeing people do it. And some of them either are currently Democrats or have voted Democrat, and you're like, how do you not see?
I grew up with, in every Hebrew school and every program I went to, a photo of Heschel and and Martin Luther King
Yeah.
arm in arm. Like that's iconic. Is it Heschel? I forget who it's. I think
Sure.
it is. It's civil Jewish rights leader in the 60s. I think it's Heschel. I could be wrong, and I apologize if I'm wrong. But it is like a Jewish leader from that era, arm in arm with Martin Luther King. And I was told we are pro civil rights. But then if I had brought this up, that all goes out the window. It's just like thrown out with Palestine. And just like you mentioned the word Palestine, and they'll be like, "What's that?"
I know.
So I was talking to and the problem is, and this is where it gets into dicey territory for me, is it's not just like individual Jews, it's like mainstream institutions of Judaism. And that's something that I'm like, it's hard to say in like outside of Jewish circles, because you say like all these institutions are Zionist, and you're like, that's not what I believe. But it is like it's some of them don't want to be that, but they just get so much pressure from people who've been propagandized to be that way. Some are just that. And there's synagogues I just couldn't set foot in. There's institutions that like I believe in some things they would do in Judaism, but because of that, I can't involve myself with them. And it's just, the messaging is like, there was another, in terms of other touchstones, there was a great documentary that I've seen like multiple times now by Noam Schuster, the Israeli anti-Zionist comedian, called Coexistence My Ass. And the line at the end of that, which like gives me chills every time I think of that, is like, it's not complicated. You can't have coexistence when one group is oppressing the other. And so I hear all these things about peace, and I'm like, how do we get peace when this continued occupation happens? You can't.
It does just,
you can't.
Again, it just sounds so similar to like white-black relations in the United States. Very like, why are they complaining? They actually have it easy, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's so, it's just, I have a joke about like, have you ever heard racism in a stereotypical Jewish accent? And it's like, and I have like all the time in my life. And it's so, all the talking points are said in a way that like, yeah, if you had heard if you had heard a KKK member say this about a black person in any era, you'd be like, yeah, that sounds like what a KKK member would say. It's so, but that's mainstream.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Not just it's in mainstream in American politics, it's mainstream in Jewish institutional and individual politics. And that's why I am so like dedicated to groups that are not that, because it's they're much smaller. Like I was involved when I was in Toronto in the Jewish diaspora event, which was a counter to the March for Israel that was happening in Toronto at the time. And it was like, there are tens of thousands of people at the March for Israel in Toronto. There were maybe like 100 people at this thing. But it's important to show up for those things, because I can't, and it's not because I want to be saved from anti-Semitism. It's because there needs to be a path for Judaism that's not this. And like what I've heard from rabbis, what I've heard from organizers is like, if those institutions are not going to do that, you have to create new spaces. It's kind of like we talk with comedy. It's like, oh, that space is not going to have us. We need to create our own space. It's sort of, it's the same, like, that's a lost cause in a lot of ways. And it's sad it's just depressing, and it's really saddening. And it's not just like the political or justice committees. It's like the Union of Reform Judaism, or even the conservative Judaism, like all the like the leaders of the religious parts of Judaism are making these statements too. And it's just bleak, and it's just depressing more than anything else.
The past couple years, it's made me think a lot about Catholicism, and it makes me want certain like Zionist people to like look at what Catholics have been through, and like what things they've faced and what things they've apologized for. Like, there's so many bad things in Catholicism. Obviously, like the sex abuse scandals was a huge story. Also, like Native American boarding schools. The Catholic Church has done so many horrible things. And some of them they haven't made right, or haven't, maybe took a little bit of accountability, but it's still not right. And I think like more Zionist Jews should see that, and see that it's okay to apologize for things, and it won't destroy the faith. It won't make everyone leave and stop going to synagogue forever. Like,
Yeah. What do we think of when we think of Germans in history? There's one thing you think
Sure.
of. You don't think of Bavaria. You don't think of the Holy Roman Empire. You don't think of like the Berlin Wall. You think of one thing.
Yes.
And I just worry 80 years from now when we think of Judaism, we're going to think of one thing that is not a whole picture of this group. And it's tricky for me because, like, you know, this is an old sort of conversation point. It's not just an ethnic group. It's a religion. It's a whole religion with a long history of oppression and you know, systematic oppression centuries before Israel was formed. And it will be there after, if, you know, one day, inshallah, if Israel is not there as a Jewish state, there'll still be anti-Semitism. It's a force of culture. I don't know why. It's just there, but it's one of those things where if one person says anything, you can't say that's not that without sounding like you're dismissing their point of view.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if I were to go up to a German and say, "Oh, you're a Nazi," and he's like, "I'm not. I haven't been that way." Blah blah blah. I'd be like, "Oh, poor you." Like I wouldn't like that would sort of be the tone you would hear. Like, no, I'm not. That's if I said that's offensive as a German, I'm offensive that you call me that. But it's a religion too. Like even if I were like, scrap all the politics, if I was just like, I want to be an observant Jew, scrap all the Israel stuff, I still have to be a member of a religion. Like that, you can't, there's no religious German. Like, so I went to a Kol Nidre service, Yom Kippur service, for the first time since my grandfather died this past year. It was run by IfNotNow, which is a very prominent anti-Israel Jewish organization. And it was sort of, I'm not religious, but I just felt like I needed to go to this. I just felt like I need to have a version of religious Judaism that's not tied to the one I was raised with.
Yeah.
And it was important to me. And I made a point, like, it was very messy as a service. Like if you go to a service at like a traditional Reform conservative synagogue, it's yet ... It's like they know the points they're making. They know the topics, the prayers they're doing. They know when they're doing it. This was sort of like, oh, I guess we're doing this now. It was kind of like very sloppy as a service, but it was necessary it was like, I'd rather it be sloppy and on this side of history than organized and still endorsing genocidal instincts.
Yeah. Are there relationships you have where you're not speaking over this or it's damaged over this?
I am very, very blessed that my immediate family and to a large extent my extended family, no matter what our differences are, like it doesn't affect our relationship. That's not the case for a lot of Jews, period. There are friendships I've had to cut off completely. There's, you know, people in the entertainment industry who were important connections for me and like had helped mentored me that I've had to cut off because of this. There's cousins who I won't be pleasant to, but I won't say anything to. And there's cousins who I will be like, let's be friends. Like, you know, about that. It's such a, like, there's basically, it's so wild. And I've had people, even people who I agree with, like more often than not, pretty much any Jew who feels the way I do about this has lost an important person in their life. And not just Jewish people, like people who have important Jewish people in their life have lost Jewish friends over this. And one of the things there's a phase every Jew or non-Jew I ever met who's like, when they start becoming anti-Zionist, if we want to define that, goes through, and they're like, it's a phase they hate. If you're a leftist version of this, they're like, when I meet a new Jewish person, what is their opinion? And that's such a shitty feeling. I know. It's such a shitty feeling because you feel like you're being anti-Semitic saying this. But I think like the blessing I have of having a family who loves me, even though some of them I completely disagree with and completely find abhorrent, and on that side of it, like the blessing is I know that I can be in a lane with them on this topic, and we're just, it's like, it's a matter of, is it worth talking about? And it sucks to say, because like, you want to be like, oh, I love this person, but they support a genocide. Like, what can you do in that situation? But at the same time, it's like, what will you cutting them off accomplish? You're not going to change their mind. You're not going to sit and have them be like, oh yeah, I've been supporting this for 60 years ardently. Oh, whoa, that kind of like, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Like, it's just Some people are just fixed in their ways, and there's nothing you can do. So it's just it's case by case. You have to be like, am I going to change this person? And if not, which is more often than not the case, what value do they add to my life to the point I want to keep them around?
Yeah.
At what point? And then even if you say I want to keep you around, which is hard to say in a lot of cases, do they want to keep me around if I'm saying this not even to them, just in general? I'm sure I've lost tons of Facebook friends and Instagram followers over being more loud about it and arguably annoying. but I'm sure of that. But it's like I would rather. But I've also made more connections. Like I did a video with the makers of Israelism on Instagram. I was terrified to do it because I was like, are they going to distort my words? Are they going to are they going to invoke my family stuff, which I didn't really want to have happen in that way? And I was like, am I going to just be full of hate and like get terrible people and be afraid for saying this? I was more afraid of calling out Zionism than I was ever for anti-Semitism, anything anti-Semitic directed at me. I mean, that's very skewed based on being a Upper West Side Jew, but it is. I was so terrified of this video releasing. My Instagram followers tripled overnight when I posted that, and I was just like, okay. And I've made connections from that video that are still like important connections in my life. So I lost a few people, I gained a few people, but I feel better about being true to my beliefs now. So that's sort of. It's just you have to recalibrate in a lot of ways.
I guess that also shows that a lot of people feel this way, but maybe don't feel safe to say it out loud.
Yeah.
And the people who are so, frankly, pro-genocide, they're extremely loud.
Yeah.
But just because they're loud doesn't mean they're big in numbers.
And they accuse the people who are not pro-genocide of being loud, and it's like, dude.
I know.
I mean,
and we see that with all the elections, of course, in New York, New Jersey. These anti-Zionist people win elections in very Jewish districts.
Yeah.
So
it's like the three factors. I've had people like reach out to me privately and being like, I want to speak out, but I don't know how to do that. You've done a good job with that. What do you do? And like the three factors I'm like, I always point out is, will your family relationships be at risk if this happens? Will your financial security be at risk if this happens? Are you okay with being called slurs on the internet, like terms like capo, like self-hating Jew, like un-Jew? These are terms that are designed to attack Jews who are calling this out, and any criticism you'll get called that on Threads or whatever platform you're on. Are you okay with taking the hit for that? And if the answer to all three makes sense, go for it. But it's almost never always all like I'm okay. All three of those check boxes are checked.
Yeah.
But you need to be aware of those check boxes before you speak up. I think either you'll learn the hard way and be taken off guard, or you go into this saying, I know what's going to happen. I know the consequences that are going to come. I'm okay with that. And it's sort of different for everyone. There's no way to be in protest of the in any kind of resistance movement without facing consequences. That's just the reality of being in any kind of resistance to the status quo kind of conversation. It's just, for everyone, it's different. Like, how much risk are you willing to assume?
I saw on Instagram you criticized Alex Edelman and said that, with his size of his platform, he should be more vocal and not ride the fence so much. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I was like, going after a comedian when you're a comedian is always a tough thing. It's always tough, and like, he doesn't know me, but he grew up in the same world I did, not just in the same kind of world. Like, he grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts. He went to the same school my mom went to, like that kind of thing. And I think he is someone who talks about anti-Semitism in a way that it's been talked about since the 70s. He says, I did not expect white supremacy to be a problem until I experienced it. It's like, look at this special, which was on Broadway. What was the message? It was it's funny. I'm not going to deny it's funny. I laughed a lot when I watched the HBO special. There were moments that I was like, that's really clever and smart. There's moments I took from my show in terms of like making some things instantly accessible to Jews while being able to explain them to non-Jews. Like, that was important. That was an influential, and that influenced my show. It's not like my show was like, fuck you, Alex, I'm going to do my show. It wasn't that, but it was like, it's just, there was no point of view. And I don't think he's expressed a point of view publicly. I don't know what his point of view is publicly. but he calls himself a nuance. It's a complicated issue. We got to talk about it in a nuanced way, but he's never actually talked about it publicly.
Yeah.
But he's gone. And I think part of that is like, you can call yourself nuanced and say nothing and be accepted in Jewish spaces. It's not until you say anything critical that those Jewish spaces close to you. And he's not like a pure Jewish comedian, but he is widely accepted in Jewish spaces, including very ardently Zionist spaces, because he's not said anything critical of Israel. And he said, like, I will lose audiences no matter what I say on this. And I'm like, all right, we'll lose those audiences.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. If you're a crazy Zionist, tell me. Like, I know nothing about where you stand. But you can't you can't call yourself that and then say nothing, like have no point of view. Like, and that especially talks about his brother being on the Olympic skeleton team for Israel. He never explains what's behind a guy from Boston being on the Israeli skeleton team. Like there's a lot going on there. It's never addressed. And I had people come to me, like privately, a comedian friends of mine, be like, fucking thank you. Like, not I know you shared it, I appreciate that, but I had so many other people in my life be like, I've been so afraid of him saying this, and I thank you for saying that. And it was like important for me to hear that. And people, I'm not going to name who they were, but it was like, I'm not the only one who feels this way about what that is. So
I think, he's always been like nice to me, and I think he's funny. I think he works hard.
Yeah.
But I did really think it was in poor taste that like the whole first year of the genocide, I feel like he's just taking a bunch of pictures with like Islamophobes.
Yeah.
And
that's what it is. That's the part of it, is like he is in spaces.
Yeah.
One of the points I made is like he is doing interviews with some of the worst doxing campaign like websites, the people who are ruining people's lives for this. And I'm like, okay, so you say you don't want to lose audiences. You've lost it already by being doing things with these publications.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything with the lefty Jewish publications. You're not, because that would that would upset the apple cart in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, it seemed kind of like it just kind of seemed like cynical lobbying for a Tony Award. Let me sidle up to these people who I know are Islamophobic and say anti-Arab things in private or even in public, but let me buddy up to them so that they tell their friends to vote for me. I thought that was gross. And again, he's nice. I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a criticism of his character.
Yes, and it's kind of like not even about him. It's more, exactly. It's a thing in Hollywood, but also like in any industry. I don't like seeing anyone do that, like trying to cozy up to racist people and say, you know what, maybe I might be pushing Muslim or Arab people down right now, but it'll benefit me. I think that's no one should be doing that.
If you did a video, if I did, or you or anyone did a video with a Holocaust denier, we would know that would be a thing. Yes. That would be, they did a video with the Holocaust denier, they're done. Like, which is fair. That's exactly how it should be. If you're doing it with a Nakba denier, is that going to be the case? No,
I know.
You can still get a lot of money that way. You can still be successful that way. You can still have a show on Broadway that way. I don't know. Like, I would love for my show to I have what I'm still like struggling out. What do I want to do with the show in the next phase? How big do I want to grow it? But I don't know if I played all the right cards, played all exactly the same moves, sent all the right emails, made all the right connections, and this show was the show, would it reach a level that like a Broadway scale level just because of its contents and just because of the message? I don't think it could. And it's not a reflection of hard work or humor or anything like that. It's just a reflection of the realities of the business of entertainment right now.
Getting money to produce a bigger thing. Yeah, I mean, you see a lot of people who are anti-Zionist or even just Muslim and Arab performers and comedians. They're doing everything on YouTube. They're doing everything on social media. They have to do it themselves because other people aren't going to produce it for them. Yeah. And I don't know. I think people like the Alex Edelmans of the world, not specifically Alex Edelman, but people in his position, you should be seeing that that's happening and pull people up.
But it goes back to that thing of like, well, I'm not Muslim, so why would I be concerned with what is, I'm Jewish, so I'm going to be concerned with what's happening to Jewish people. It's just, I call it, like, the term I use for it is like ethnic tunnel vision. Like, what's happening to your ethnicity, your religion matters more than what's happening to other people's ethnicity and it's just what there's some like social realities to that. This is the people I grew up with. This is what I'm inclined to focus on. And I do that too. I don't I don't claim to know much about the lifestyle of an Arab or a Palestinian or a Muslim. I don't claim to know like about their practices or what the culture is of that world. I know my world, I feel like my role is tackling that head on, warts and all, in a lot of ways. I guess, is that anti-Semitic, warts and all?
That's funny. Yeah, I always feel crazy when I bring this up.
Yeah.
So my dad worked in the Twin Towers my whole life, and like since I was a baby until I was 11, he got a different job the summer before 9/11.
Yeah.
And it was extremely traumatizing on him. It was very traumatizing on my mother. Between them, they have family members, friends. Between them, they probably know like hundreds of people who died. And I really was imprinted upon growing up that my parents were very concerned by rising Islamophobia. They were like, they would see people be Islamophobic and be like, what the hell? Like, wait, this is a freak thing that happens. Like, why? And my dad like really made a point of like helping young Muslim people. Like if we had friends at school who were Muslim, he would just like reach out and say like, hey, if you need like letters of recommendation for college or jobs, just let me know, because I know there's like bias against Muslims right now, and if I can help, I'd love to help, because I was affected by this freak thing. And I just think there is so much Islamophobia in our culture. And if you're not Muslim, you should really freaking try to help Muslim people when you can, if you can.
Yeah. It's just like, if a fraction of the things that are said and done to Muslims in America right now were done to Jews, like, it would be like every newspaper in the country. And even like there was an attack in England like a few months ago, where 2 Jews were killed and stabbed to death, and a Muslim was killed first. We never heard about the Muslim who was killed. We never heard about it. It was always depicted as an anti-Semitic attack. One Muslim, 2 Jews were killed. If it had been 2 Muslims and 1 Jew, would that matter? That kind of thing,
right?
I mean, I'm also like,
and the San Diego mosque shooting, and recently I think there was a stabbing, or maybe
stabbing. That it's just one of those things where
it just doesn't get the headlines about rising Islamophobia.
Yeah,
and it just makes me sad. It makes me feel really sad, because I just think it must be so frustrating to see that and to not feel allowed to talk about it on top of it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I had to block. I'm at this point, like, I'm not blocking people, I'm unfollowing people, which is, thank God for the unfollow option. But I saw someone, it was on LinkedIn of all places, and I'm like, this is a weird place to.
This is for jobs.
This is for jobs. But they were talking about like a Muslim attacked a Jew at a Zionist rally or something like that, or confronted a Jew at the Zionist rally. Like, Jews don't do that because we're better than that. I'm like, it's like, do a Google search on Islamophobia rates. That's Google.com is available to you. You can see the rates that are happening there. But it's just not an inclination to do that. And it's just, I just think a scale, like just the scale, like if I'm given an inch of anti-Semitism, for every inch I'm given in America right now, Muslims are given a mile.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that inch is good or justified.
I know, of course.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's an inch.
Mm-hmm. You look at like the replies of like comedian friends of mine, and like, I'm not blind. I do see that people get like anti-Semitic comments.
I get those all the time. Yeah.
But every single post that my Palestinian friend makes, she gets You guys are so violent. Move back to Gaza, like saying, like, I want you to go get bombed by the IDF. Like, well, you people deserve this. Like, just saying, anytime she posts a joke online, she gets...
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It doesn't have to do with anything involving that.
Yeah.
It's just because her existence. And I'll get that too. Like, I'll get anti-Semitism in comments, but like, it's scale.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it is. And I'll get upset when I see things. Like, I saw, like, there's Vidiot's, the movie theater in LA, which I love, which is my neighborhood. They did a screening of A Serious Man, the Coen brothers movie about, their Jewish upbringing, and someone posted a Free Palestine thing in there.
Right.
And I'm like, this movie,
not the time.
Or it's not even like, it's the movie, and it's like, why do you have a problem with me posting this beautiful flag? Was one of the comments, and I'm just like, you're clearly you're just saying it's Jewish, therefore it's
right.
It's trying to kill.
I need to say something about this.
Yeah. But it's also, but the problem with that is that, like, how am I supposed to say that's not, like, how am I supposed to say that's not related when all the mainstream institutions are saying it's related? Yeah. And, like, I could yell all day about anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism not being the same thing. But when the people who are Jewish are saying it, how do I claim it's not that? And, like, it's just like it's an identity crisis to be like, is this, and like sometimes I question, like, is everyone saying this? Am I the weird one? Am I the brainwashed one by saying this? Like, it can be like such cognitive dissonance with that. I always think of, do you ever see that movie or play Rhinoceros by Ionesco? It's basically a metaphor for fascism where everyone's turning into a rhinoceros, and like, it's absurdist, but it's about, like, once fascism enters the fray, it takes over everyone to the point where you start questioning, am I the weird one for not being a fascist or a rhinoceros in this case? And I think about that a lot. Like, I feel like, hey, murdering hundreds of thousands of people is wrong. Civilians is wrong indiscriminately. But am I being crazy by saying this is not anti-Semitic to say, like, I'll have those doubts sometimes. And it's, even as someone who's as loud and annoying online as I am, I'll still have, like, I don't know where the line is, and, like, how much that line matters, even to some extent. I'll take an anti-Semitic, and also, like, the hate I'll get online for speaking out against this is more directed for me for speaking out against this than it is for my Judaism. Yeah. Like, and this is sort of reflective of the world. Like, I was so afraid to say anything because I knew the hit I would take on this. And like, I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Upper West Side. I grew up in an overwhelmingly Jewish community. My mom grew up in Boston, an overwhelmingly Jewish community. My dad grew up in Montreal, an overwhelmingly Jewish community. It's what I know. I have been hurt by Jews in my life more than I've been hurt by anti-Semitism in my life. That's not a universal Jewish experience. I've had friends have swastikas drawn on them when they were drunk. I've had friends with pennies thrown at them, like, as an anti-Semitic thing. Like, I've had friends deal with horrible things that I've never had to deal with. I've had people make shitty comments about me, but that's just my experience. I've been hurt. That's why I feel a little looser, maybe, in terms of what I say, is because the people who are going to hurt me for this have always been hurting me, and I'm numb to it at this point to some extent.
And that kind of brings up the point too, that if someone has had so many anti-Semitic, like genuinely anti-Semitic experiences, that's traumatizing, and trauma can color the way you look at things. Yeah. And
that's like an individual level, but that's also in, like, the whole existence of Israel. Exactly. Like, one of my cousins, and I won't name them because they're great, but they put it in a way that was so real, but so bleak. They said Israel is proof that the Nazis won, because we're stuck in a trauma cycle from that we can't get out of, and everything related to our trauma has to be filtered through this state, and that's why we need this state, is because that the trauma we face in the Holocaust. It's like a performer who does a great show in LA, Greg Nissen. They're fantastic. They have a great show, and they talked about growing up in the same world I did, and the way it's presented to most Jews, and I'd say this is pretty more or less universal, is Holocaust Exhibit A, Israel Exhibit B, and that's like,
you have to choose one.
No, it's just, therefore it's like Holocaust, therefore Israel.
Okay, yes.
And that's like, it's such a basic way of thinking, and it takes looking outside of Judaism and looking at a world from, like, a more global perspective. And that's hard to do when you're raised so deep in a Jewish circle. Like I grew up watching Exodus, the movie. I grew up watching Operation Thunderbolt, the movie about the raid on Entebbe. And it was like, this was just around. This was just things that like were required viewing as a Jew growing up. No context about what was going on the other side of that. And I read Zionism, a very short introduction, my dad's book. And it talks about it's about Zionism, so he's not talking as much about the Palestinian resistance unless as it relates to Zionism, which is fair. But I'm just reading this, I'm like, there's gaps in this understanding this issue. There's just inherent gaps if you focus solely on the Zionist angle, which there's a lot to talk about independently of anything. But it's like, oh, I wonder why that happened. I wonder why settlers in lands that were not theirs experienced violent resistance. I wonder why. Were they taking people's lands? It's just like, and that's like not the point of his book, but it's just something, me reading it from my new point of view, I'm just like, oh, okay. There's not that, it's just, if you just present it solely from a Jewish Zionist perspective, you're just going to miss the context there.
Yeah, and it's, same as reading like American settler frontier history. I can't believe these savages were fighting. Why do you think they were fighting that?
The word savages is literally in the Declaration of Independence, which I just learned on July 4th. Like, I did not know that before. It was, it's the same thing where it's like, we're fighting for freedom, but those savages over there.
Right.
It's just so, I'd never understood how you can see like, my people are better than your people. And there's no way to justify the state of Israel without thinking a Jewish life matters more than a Muslim life. I just don't see a way you can justify the existence of that state and not think that. And it's hard. It sucks. It's sad. I've tried every way to get around how do you think that, but like I grew up and every time there'd be a conflict in my childhood, I'd be like, oh, 10 Jews died, 100 or 1,000 Palestinians died. And I'd be like, what's that about? And everyone would be like, oh, you have to, no, not even like, don't talk about it. It's like, it's complicated. What you have to understand is, and then it gives some justification. And I'm like, I'm just looking at body counts. What's going on with these body counts? And they'd be like, it's complicated. And that sort of I'm like, all right, you're an adult. I guess you're saying it's complicated. I guess I have to listen to you. I don't know a lot about it. So I guess you're right. And I'm like, actually, it's body counts are body counts to some extent. So
yeah. Do you have final thoughts, plugs, anything?
I don't have. I'm booking new dates for my show. I'm figuring out the vision board of what the show will be still. But
well, I hope you keep doing it. I think it has legs.
I am going to keep doing it. I'm debating. Do I keep doing it live? Do I keep pushing to get bigger stages, or do I do something more filmed and more produced? But if you want to see what's about, there's a lot of clips and a lot of me being loud at Ethan Stan Comedy on Instagram, Twitter, all the platforms. I will announce dates on there. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. It's one of those things where I'm looking at seeing where this goes. At the same time, I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? What's the scale? Because I think it has legs. I'm like, it is when you have a comedy thing, you're like, oh, I think this is going somewhere. It's like, what do I do with this? So I'm just going to continue to be loud online and continue to do what I do, get more dates going, and we'll see where it goes. But if you want to check it out, you can also follow me on Patreon. I have the link to the show, performance of the show available to any paid Patreon subscribers. $5. You can pay $5, see it, and then cancel. I don't care. But yeah, hopefully, thank you for listening, and thank you for having me, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. Ethan Stanislawski, everybody. Woo!